Welcome to the Windshape Homes podcast, where we tell the redemptive story of foster care and invite you to discover how you are a part of that story. I'm your host, Austin Ludwig, and in this special recording of Season 2, we filmed live at CAFO Summit, where we sat down with thought leaders and keynote speakers to talk about what it means to live distinct from the world for the world. Today, our guest is the director of Restore Hope, which is a software and services organization that helps communities achieve better outcomes for justice and child welfare efforts. In this episode, we talk about the unique ways data can inform how communal ecosystems work together. We also explore the importance of reunification and the value of moving biological parents from crisis to career. We hope you enjoy this conversation with Paul Chapman.
Paul is actually the director of Restore Hope, and looking forward to this conversation. Talk a little bit about your efforts, what you guys are doing, how you're bringing communities together, how you're using data to show impact, but also talk about how do we move families from crisis to career, how y'all talk about it. So excited to have you. Paul and I actually met, it's been a year ago actually, here at CAFO. Was that?
It was. Yeah, it was a year ago.
So Paul and I have become friends and just really impressed with his leadership and work. So thank you for joining us for the podcast.
Well, thanks so much for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I was excited for Austin even to get to be a part of this conversation, and would love to hear a little bit about just who are you? Introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us a little bit about your origin story. Quite frankly, why are you in the space of child welfare, and how did you get here?
Yeah. I grew up in Arkansas. We landed there. I was pretty young. Vietnam War was going on. My dad was in active duty service. We lived in Germany for about 3 years, processed out through Lawton, Oklahoma, and then they were making a decision, Memphis or Little Rock, and they chose Little Rock. They had both grown up, my mom and dad both grown up in the Delta, Mississippi Delta of Arkansas there. And so non-religious family, went to Catholic school because the school that our neighborhood was in some trouble. And so as a non-Catholic, I went to what became 12 years of Catholic school.
Okay, yeah.
Lots of church, lots of religion classes, and largely I would consider myself to be agnostic during that time. I met a pretty girl in high school. She went to a United Methodist church.
Very good. Yep.
And so to be close to her, I would get myself invited to church with her and her family sometimes. To say that I didn't know what was going on, is almost an understatement. All I knew in my crass way is that their guy dressed up kind of like our guy.
So it must be okay.
And different smells, different bells, but that, I've always felt like an outsider trying to understand what all that was. And so ended up talking that pretty girl into marrying me a little later on. We started having kids, and I was working in financial technology, had the opportunity to move over to the Middle East. And so we moved in February of 2001. I moved my family to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Yeah. And it was great, and it was an adventure. They paid us a whole lot of money, and then 9/11 happened. And while we're there, politics and religion were the topics of conversation. I mean, that's what we all talked about.
Right.
And then 9/11 happened, and it only accelerated. There was more meaning to almost an argument of why did these things happen, or what is purpose, who's right. And so I repatriated 2 years later back to the United States, but had just become a Christian.
I love that, yeah.
Had read a lot of the Quran, had become an Islamic banking or Sharia law banking expert, and had had a lot of conversations with other faiths. But I felt through a bit of study and largely just the leading of God that Jesus was who he claimed to be. And so while back in America, we started, Lori and I started figuring out, we've got to reorder our lives based upon certain truths. And we started doing that, and that led into us getting very involved in our church, becoming discipleship group leaders, volunteering, and then ultimately me and the guys from my D group went into a local prison to teach a manhood class that was very important to us.
Yeah.
in '05, 20 years ago last month, 2 months ago now, I guess. And I can tell you, I felt God's pleasure. I knew that I was caught up in this work that He wanted me and many others to do in Arkansas at that time. And I ended up going, I became a professional Christian in '06. I can remember having lunch with the pastor who this ministry was blowing up in prison, guys and gals, and going in and trying to help guys and gals who were incarcerated get out and stay out. And and I would go to lunch with Robert, and I'm like, this thing is just going. We've got a relationship with the Department of Corrections. We're starting to learn more. They're asking us for more engagement, for help from the community and from the church community in particular. And it's just, it's blue ocean. We can do all kinds of, all manner of things. And I don't feel like I'm qualified. I can remember the first time I took him to lunch, I was like, I think I've got a ministry.
But I'm not sure.
I'm not sure what that means.
Just happened. Yeah, just happened.
What a great posture to have, though. I think I've got this ministry, and look at what God's accomplishing, right? Not because you're like smarter, have a great ministry strategy going on. So,
Pastor
good.
Man, can you
I
think that's what this is?
that's what we're doing.
He was such an encouragement, and ended up hiring me to come lead missions for Fellowship Bible Church a few years later.
Yeah. So is that the origin story then even of why you do what you do at Restore Hope? Were some of those, did you start Restore Hope? Okay, that's what I thought. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so about 10 years working at Fellowship Bible Church, we gave money away, which means that everyone tries to get in front of you and ask you for it, which gives you, just the relationships that we had, and the perspective too, I think, with people that were doing really good things, innovative things, in small ways. But I'd say kind of more globally, you got to see how everyone's kind of touching the same family.
Yeah.
Mom's in trouble, dad's absent, kids are having trouble in school. We've got an after-school program that we're supporting and working to propped up that school's PTA and all these things. But dads are largely gone in the neighborhood that we're partnering with. And we've got all these different ministries that we're funding, calling church people to be involved in or engaged in ourselves. But it's all touching the same people. And so we did many innovative things with church and state. There's a historically black college that we were bringing inmates to, the only place in Arkansas that these inmates were getting out of prison, being brought and going to college with everyone else. And we were surrounding them. We acquired a transition house and gave men and women the opportunity to leave that program and come there to get some additional help. And so all these things were going on. But I would say the harder that we were working, I'm not saying we didn't help people. We helped a lot of people. But it wasn't changing the system. Right. And that was a real disappointment, frustration, a rock in the shoe is, if I had $20 million more to give, I don't know that we would change. The way that we're going about programming isn't going to change, have population level change. We could help some people, but it's still just kind of additive, not moving into multiplication.
So Restore Hope was birthed out of that, then primarily to bring all of the different just community members, the ecosystem, as I like to call it, like everybody that is touching a family in crisis, whether it's the food bank, whether it's the local church, is that where Restore Hope then is the convener of those things?
That's it. Two things happened. After many years of work and modifying this program, we had really dialed in a reentry program at this historically black college, where the Department of Corrections is saying, we want a program like this across the state of Arkansas. We'll do whatever we can to make it happen. And so we invited a benevolent businessman over, and we're going to ask him for a lot of money. And number two is we had a new governor who took office. We had the twin crises of foster care and incarceration in the state of Arkansas. For 12 to 16, we had the fastest growing prison population in the nation. Our growth program foster care mirrored that. And so he took office, and I sat on a task force that he called the Restore Hope Task Force that largely was faith-based leaders discussing how in the world are we going to change these trajectories. And so this is going on. And so this businessman, we're asking for money, and he said, it's really impressive what you're doing. And we're like, yeah, we know. It's like outstanding, right? But then he said, how many people can you serve in a year? And it said 200. Mm-hmm. But, if you give us the money, we'd make that 400. And he said, but how many people get out of prison every year in Arkansas?
Yeah.
And at the time, it was 10,000. 10,000 get out every year.
Wow.
And he said, I'm not giving you $1. You need to go find the smartest people you can, lock them in a room. Don't come out until you have the solution for a 10,000 problem. Mm. And so that was in my mind. He told us our baby was ugly. And we worked hard on it, y'all. I mean, like real hard. So, I got all in my feels. And I was like, no one's got a solution for the 10,000 problem. But so that's back there in the back of my mind is like, I wonder if anyone's ever come up with a solution for a 10,000 problem. And then sitting on this task force and meeting the new governor and the governor's staff and knowing that the governor really meant he was serious about doing something. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote a strategy paper, having become aware of collective impact, change theory, if you will, or an approach, which just means that you've got to bring groups of people together around the same common agenda, shared measures. You've got a backbone organization. I wrote a little vision paper up thinking it was just advice to Governor Hutchinson and gave that to him. And then he called me in the office and he said, I love this. What do you need to make this happen? And that was not at all, and I wasn't looking for a job.
Yeah, right.
But thought that, we've got this opportunity. It's probably not going to work. Mm-hmm. But how can we build collective impact collectives supported by the state agencies at a community level where all the decisions are made?
That's right.
Do I take the kid into foster care or do I open a protective service?
That's right.
Yeah. Do I jail the mom because she's not compliant with this particular case or her parole probation? Or do I leave her in the home because she seems to be going in the right way? All these discretionary decisions are made at a local level.
That's
and
right.
So what could we build? That was the question was, I know it will work if we can make it happen, if we can build an alliance and support it with software. I don't know that we can do it, but we're going to give it a shot. Yeah. I had permission from the boss, Mrs. Chapman, said, you can go for it. And you did and we did.
And you did it.
And what year was that? I'm curious.
15 is when I wrote the paper, late 15.
Okay.
And my church fellowship helped me kind of launch this this fledgling aspirational idea in January of 16.
So could you talk to us a little bit about, even deeper, you already broached it already, but foster care, how is this all tangled up in all of this, and what do y'all do specifically kind of in that space and the cause effect that happens there specifically?
Yeah, and so with foster care, most of the cases in Arkansas are neglect, and reunification is the goal. If we take a child into foster care in Arkansas with a goal of reunification, it usually does not happen. Only 43% of the cases do we successfully reunite the child with the parent or guardian that they were taken from. But now, all these years later, if we can get a team of professionals around a support team, which may include their child welfare worker and their parole probation officer and the housing authority and the employment folks and the substance abuse people, if they can all be on the same team, knowing exactly what's going on with Miss Susie, then we've moved, in the last 12 months, we've moved reunification rates from 43% to just under 72%.
Wow.
So it goes from you're probably not going to get your kids back to you're probably going to get your kids back.
Yeah.
Do you want help?
Yeah.
And so and most often the answer is yeah, I'd love your help.
So I got to actually witness this. We actually went on a tour with Paul and Restore Hope, and there were 20 of us, I think, maybe. Was that January that I was with you? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Something like
it was January.
But I got to sit in a room at Harding University, and all of the I mean, what do you call them? Stakeholders. So your community members, your police, your government, the education system, everybody that's a part of all the people that touch maybe a family, even in the foster care system, your CPS, whatever. It's all in a room talking about look at the data, look at what we have like accomplished together.
Yeah.
I was so impressed. It was so humbling, quite frankly, to see all the things that y'all have been able to accomplish. But it was such a community aspect, a mindset, a goal of achieving. Yes, reunification, foster care is a piece of it, right?
Yeah,
but moving those families from crisis to career or flourishing, as y'all would articulate it. So how have y'all done that? How have you?
Yeah.
I mean, that is significant
It's like,
work.
okay, tell us, give us the,
but that's a leave your ego
for
brand
sure.
at the door.
Yeah.
I mean, how have you spent time leading? How does your team lead to collectively bring unity together?
Yeah, so we partner with the state. The state's got to really buy in. We're looking for partners because we have software and it's shiny and I mean it's super slick. And frankly, we could just go sell software. But it really won't work. It won't get the outcomes that I just told you about, like in reunification, if you don't. It empowers human relationship at a community level.
Yeah.
And so you have all these professionals that are paid for publicly and privately at a community level that could provide help and show up to work to provide help to the individuals that are in need. We call it in crisis. And we measure that crisis through an assessment that's very holistic, and it's got 13 different social determinants like employment and safety and child care and mental health and dental and medical and all these things. And we'd rate that over a 1 to 5 scale that are defined. And so once that assessment is completed, I come in, I ask you for help, and you get all in my business. You complete this assessment. Now all of a sudden an action plan is starting to be generated automatically for the things that I'm in crisis on. You can add to, subtract from. You can also, if there are 20 things because I'm really in need, you're saying, hey, listen, we're just going to get you, you're not going to sleep in your car tonight.
Yeah.
Like, let's get you over here. And I don't want you using today. So I'm going to attach, we're going to get services over here. And so you start structuring in the proper sequence the help that already exists in the community. They're added in the software, and now you're communicating. I met with Paul. Here's what he's got going on. I've given you full consent to share all of that, so it's HIPAA, FERPA, COPA compliant. And I could also say, I'll work with anyone but Austin. I've worked with him before. I don't like him.
Want to do that, yeah.
And so Austin can't be put on the case. But what that does is it starts to build this team now who can operate as if they're all in the same organization, which is a huge barrier. The logistics, gaining access and becoming eligible for programs or proving eligibility for programs is a huge barrier to people actually getting the help that they want and they're qualified for.
Yeah. So some may be wondering, okay, so how does this relate to child welfare? Because y'all are doing much more than even just foster care, child welfare reality, but it touches it. It's like neglect, it's the poverty issue, it is the incarceration issue. So like for us, we are excited I think you're doing a workshop here at CAFO even talking about how this is important in the prevention reality, the restoration reality of families, and the reunification of families. So talk a little bit about maybe even a story or something of a family. Again, you talked about how low the rate of reunification was and how it significantly increased. It has had. Tell us a little bit about how does this support the foster care child welfare system uniquely in these communities?
Yeah, I'd say in the prevention realm, it's just over 75% of all clients that were onboarded in the last year in Arkansas, which is 4,100 clients total.
Wow.
75% did not yet have a child welfare case. But if you look at their intake assessment, very easily they could, at least a protective services, if not a full-blown removal. And so we're moving upstream. That's what our child welfare agency director and her staff, that's their highest value. It's like you're addressing these issues before we have to get courts and CASAs and their staff and attorneys, everyone involved. And so that's one on the prevention side. But on the preservation and reunification side, I'll tell you a story. Last week, Mike, and he's given permission to share this because he stood up in front of a group in Searcy in White County.
Very good. Yeah,
so we had a 5-year celebration of that alliance working. And so Mike gets up. We met him about 2 years ago. Given the situation that he was in, basically doomed. He had outstanding issues in district court. They had warrant out for his arrest, lots of fees and fines owed. He was actively using for many years. and we had been calling him. It's not like it was unknown. They're like, hey, man, people looking for you. You
Yeah.
want some help.
Yeah.
And he had dodged all help. His kids were suffering, and his wife had terminal cancer. It's when he knew that his wife was going to die that our advocate got a text, and he said, hey, this is Mike. You've been messaging me for months. I think I'm ready. And so that was the catalytic moment for him, knowing that his kids were going to be without his wife, that he needed to get out of the hole that he was in. The list of things that he needed are legion. I've got them on a slide that I'll share.
I bet.
It just, it makes you tired thinking about
Yeah.
the state that Mike was in. Anyway, we fast forward to, last week. No one's looking for Mike. Mike's kids are on the honor roll. They were both legally blind. They've had surgeries to help them with their eyesight. His wife did die. He's 43 months sober, though. So during that, he did not relapse.
Wow.
And so he's working.
Yeah.
In fact, he was doing so well that an MMA fighter in that region took him. They had this whole community thing. They took him down, bought him a truck.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
let's
and he
go.
uses that to DoorDash, and that's how he's supplementing income, and so it was this whole community that surrounded a guy who had so isolated himself and was, medicating himself out of reality because he couldn't stand it, possibly even maybe to death. And now here he is. He's got this huge smile, and the community knows him and likes him. He's a part of a church family.
And his children is still in his home.
And the
not
children
removed.
are still in his home. Child welfare case closed. It did not look good when wife was dying. So child welfare was in the meeting. They stood up and they're clapping.
Wow.
Because they were one of the, like half that room. Because as we were talking about his journey and who helped him, half that room stood up, including the grocery store that provided Thanksgiving
Interesting.
meals 2 years in a row for his family. And it's like, that's what community looks like.
Yeah.
And if you don't have this alliance, and I would say you could do it without the software. Software allows it to scale and allows it to be compliant. But that's what it looks like when you can enable a community to care for someone. Mike is the story that you get out the other side.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. Yeah, we were just talking actually with Jason Weber, and we were talking about how we recruit even as an agency, and how others like this recruit churches and to getting involved in the child welfare crisis, and how we start with 400,000 kids in the system and 100,000 that need to be, but there's a reality where it's a community crisis. It's a community type of engagement that actually needs to happen. So if you say there's 62 kids in your county that need support and need help and need you to engage as a local fellowship to do that, is much more because we're community that. It's a local level. It's where decisions are made, and decisions are made by those who show up in the local community for that. So I again am encouraged just with what is happening just through y'all's efforts, and I've seen it and it's incredible. I got to sit in a local school theater and celebrate just some significant efforts that have happened there. So
Well, I've heard Callie celebrate and talk about it, and it's made me keen. And I think we've been in other environments. I think Foster Care Collective that we hosted, but then just recently again we were all in Nashville, Franklin, Tennessee for the Four Others gathering, and so just been excited to hear more about this. And Paul, I'm curious. Especially my story as a former foster youth like that. This has been. These are the things that I'm super curious, because I continue to go back to my story and thinking about my family and different layers here of having social workers involved for many years, cases open frequently as a young guy, and thinking back to the what if moments, right? What if there was connection and opportunity for prevention, for preservation, and that infrastructure that was there. But I think about my family. You and I were even talking off camera about just the barriers that people you just shared run into. And when you're in this perpetual state of crisis, you were talking about going and getting a birth certificate, and how these things to us and who aren't living in crisis seem very normal, very accessible. I can go knock that out next week, put it on my to-do list. But for somebody who's in a perpetual state of crisis, you add one thing and then a couple of other things, there's this long laundry list that needs to get done. It seems almost impossible, and it is so beautiful to see. Okay, if we can just make this simple and think about what can we do to remove barriers, the impact that has on the entire family is crazy. And I would love to even hear, how are you connecting the dots? You're talking about, okay, we've got to galvanize, we got to get everybody on the same page. How do you do that? How do you get the grocery store involved? How does that happen?
Yeah, and so at a local level, we've got a playbook that helps a community start an alliance. And largely, what we'll do is we'll contract with the state. We'll get some public funds, and then we'll deliver them to that community to hire a coordinator that pulls the alliance together and keeps them together, and then place these advocates or case managers that will serve this alliance in the appropriate nonprofits where people are gathered. And so they'll go to a child welfare office or a probation office or a family shelter, wherever we can find kind of target participants. But so what you do essentially is you work with this coordinator to start hosting meetings in which you're going to bring data and you're going to cast a vision for what would it look like if we worked together. And so the first one we did was a bear. Because nothing existed.
Yeah,
I mean, we're pitching just aspirational kumbaya, let's come hold hands, and none of y'all like each other kind of vision. But now you can say, hey, look, there are all these other communities that are getting better outcomes, and they're more efficient in their service delivery.
Yeah.
Could that work here in your community?
Yeah. And
you find the right people who will respond to that right now. We've always been able to find groups that are like, we've got to work together. And so we'll deliver a grant to that group where they can dedicate some resource to this collective impact, pulling together of the alliance. But in the alliance, there are all different ways that you will kind of incent people to do this work, because many of them don't like each other.
Yeah.
There's natural conflict, or especially in smaller towns, you know everyone.
Yeah.
15 years ago, you took my sister to prom, and I hadn't liked you since.
Oh, it goes that deep.
I forget about that kind of. I mean, yeah, it does.
You talk bad about me in the paper, and so now I'm gonna snipe back at you. All this stuff goes on in every one of our communities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we need everyone to come together. So that's I guess it's a recognition of the reality of the human condition.
Right.
But if can we pitch a vision in which people and have this goal, crisis to career? You can have all your individual uniquenesses and things that you're interested in and peculiarities, and it doesn't matter. When we're together, we're helping families move from crisis to career.
Yeah.
By the way, we did 87 of those as of today.
That's
and
amazing.
high fives all the way around.
Yeah.
And but there's a monthly meeting for an alliance. You're having a panel. You review data always. That's the first thing that's done. And then you have a panel of experts. So you could have a law enforcement panel. What's going on with violent crime? It seems like it's getting worse. Or crime's down. How did that happen?
Yeah.
And so you're building relationships. You're also getting locals are being known by the other professionals, and they're using that. Not even in the software. They're just going, hey, Callie, I saw you in the Walmart. Now we're going to have a little talk, and you're just doing things together. And that's the relational, that's the art part, I think. The science is the software and the collective impact theory and all that. But it will not work if the relationships don't take hold.
Yeah. Okay, so we're at CAFO, where distinct is the theme. Tell me a little bit about just your personal faith story that you talked about, how you are living distinctly, even through Restore Hope and even in discipling others, because this is not necessarily fully. Faith community is part of this, right? But how are you distinctly living, even to influence others to live distinctly? How many times can I say distinctly?
Distinct.
You need more.
I need it a few more times. Okay, yeah.
I'd say probably the best choice I've made besides choosing to follow Jesus would be I asked that girl to marry me early on before she was full
Lori's
of wisdom.
amazing too,
Yeah.
by the
she
way.
is.
I mean, I like you, but I really like your wife. So.
Well, she's the one that said, when we were dating, she was like, I think I want to adopt, and I'm in the back of my head, I'm like, I don't think I want any kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, I want to make money and become secure, and and do those things and enjoy life, and so we've fostered, we've adopted, we do we just finished a small little respite period, and try to support kind of that world, and I'd say that as we're becoming old and decrepit, and all of our friends are empty nesters, we still have a child at home, and one we just sent off to college, but are still kind of in this world of kind of fostering and adopting. So that's been kind of the way that Lori and I have chose to kind of serve, I think, our community is largely in this way.
That's good. Well, as you think about the future of Restore Hope and the things that you're leading them in, talk a little bit about what's your dream for Restore Hope. And I know you've got a lot of new initiatives that are happening, some opportunities that are coming about, but what excites you the most about strengthening families in these local communities? And what do you see in the horizon vision for Restore Hope?
If I can live long enough, I would love to equip every state to at least have the infrastructure to be able to carry out, in every one of their neighborhoods and counties, they would have these set of tools in which the local community can actually come together as an alliance. And when they try things, they'll have instant feedback as to what's happened. Did it work? Did it not work? What do we need to address now? Because things change all the time in our communities. People leave, people come, grants in, there are larger impacts to the plant closing or winning new jobs. And so you need to be able to flex. I think every community would be able to serve those in crisis better if they had these set of tools, and we're working hard for that. Now, distinctly, what these alliances allow and call for is the church community, faith-based nonprofits and the churches to be a part of the alliance, and they can serve in any way they want. We do have churches who are actually leading the alliance. So these churches and a couple of faith-based nonprofits are leading the alliance in their community. They're spending their time serving the community leaders and introducing other church members and leaders into relationship with many of these people. And they're all on the same team. Not once have we had a charge of a violation of church state.
Wow. Yeah.
Because the purpose that we're gathered for is moving families from crisis to career. And you can be distinctly you. And the atheist group that wanted to do foster care, you're welcome to be a part of the alliance. There aren't many of those, by the way. I think it follows the worldview.
Right.
But
Sure.
But they could, for sure. But it removes all the barriers between, kind of going out to the faith community. And I would say, having had a relationship with many state agencies and lots of believers in these agencies, for sure, in Arkansas, but they don't necessarily think of the church as a solution. They don't know how to approach, and the church doesn't know how to plug in.
Yeah.
And so this gives an opportunity for both to be uniquely them, but to be able to serve together. And it's all protected, and it's human-centered, because the family, Miss Susie, gets to choose.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be with these church people. I'm choosing to go to their programs, and I want to be a part of their recovery program. And everyone's fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so if people want to learn more about your organization and what you do, what's the best way for people to engage?
Restorehope.io. Go to our website, and then we produce media at smartjustice.org.
Yeah. If you wanted to read some of the research and even some of the outcomes that have happened in these communities, all that's there as well. So
Yeah,
I know
Paul
y'all are putting out good resources all the
Sent
time.
me data from this hub, and I was just, once I dug into it, first I was like, okay, I need to understand this. And then I was impressed.
Yeah.
I was impressed. That's the best way I can put it, because we're in this space a lot, and I think sometimes we're banging our head against the wall going how, from a data perspective, how do we, do this? So anyways, just celebrating that, just even the outcomes and the different variables and things that you're measuring. it's cool. Turn some lights on in my head that I don't know were turned on yet, or maybe it was collecting dust a little bit. I'm like, yeah, this is important stuff. So celebrating that, man.
Yeah, thanks. There were 1,400 users of that system, and they all give input. And so it's largely been driven, kind of crowdsourced.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, wouldn't it be better if we did it this way? Or how come I have to type her name twice? Like I should, if I type it once, I should never in the history of time have to type it again. And it's like, hey, you're right.
Your
and
users are informing then like how to do it better.
That's right.
Yeah, to get better. That's so good. Well, Paul, we're really thankful that you joined us on the podcast. Good luck with your workshop too. What are you going to be talking about in your workshop?
Collaboration.
Very good. Okay, something you know about. So that's so good. Yeah.
Well, thank you for collaborating with us.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, Paul, we close out every podcast episode inviting our guests to just pray for our people, and I think that you're carrying something that I believe part of the things that we talk about, we dream about. Even I think some of what we do with the foster care collective with Windshape Homes, trying to get people together is just seeing that galvanizing, that unity happen, but just seeing better strategy overall, better data. You guys seem to look at things and tilt your head and go, we're going to think about this differently. And if we measure things properly, it will help us do that. So I just would ask that you would pray for God to, instill this in us throughout the nation, that we would just begin to maybe even tilt our heads a little bit and just whatever else the Lord invites you to pray. Would you close us out that way?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Lord, we do come to you. We're grateful for the mission that you've called us for. Lord, have mercy on those that are in crisis. They're hopeless right now. Lord, raise up your people to bring them the ultimate hope that you've given us. And Lord, as we're trying to engage with a system that sometimes can be perplexing and it's always fraught with trouble, Lord, allow us to see these in new ways. Give wisdom to us as we're trying to make changes. Let us do no harm, but bring help and bring hope. And again, through your Spirit, may you rise up an army called to this work of serving families and serving children for your glory. And in Jesus' name, amen.
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 Amen. Amen. That's right. All right, Paul, you're the best. Tell Lori we said hi.
Yeah, thanks so
thank
much.
you.
Appreciate
Thanks,
y'all.
Thank you so much for listening to the Windshape Homes podcast. If you want to stay connected, make sure you subscribe and follow us on social media.